Jake had always lived a life that many would call simple but satisfying. The vast open plains, the smell of fresh hay, the sound of horses' hooves clattering on the wooden floor of the barn, all these were part of his daily rhythm. He woke up before the sun rose, wrapped himself in his worn leather jacket, and headed out to tend the ranch. For Jake, life was predictable, filled with routines he knew by heart. He had spent years learning the ways of the land, understanding the animals, fixing fences, and ensuring that the ranch his family had worked for generations continued to thrive. The days were long, but they were his, and he liked them that way. But life, as it often does, had a way of changing in an instant. One morning, the calm of his routine was shattered by a phone call that he never expected. His brother Mark had passed away. The words echoed in his mind, refusing to make sense. Mark was only a few years younger, healthy, and full of life, or so Jake had thought. There had been no warning, no illness slowly taking over. One moment, Mark had been there, laughing over a shared joke, and the next, he was gone. The shock of it left Jake numb, unable to speak, his mind struggling to comprehend the reality. It was more than just losing a brother. Mark had left behind two young children, Emily and Sam. Emily was 7, full of energy and curiosity, always asking questions about the world and insisting on being involved in everything. Sam was younger, just 4, shy and hesitant, clinging to anything that made him feel safe. They were suddenly alone, and Jake, as their closest family member, became their only option. At first, he could hardly imagine himself in this role. He had never been responsible for children before, let alone for 2 at the same time. He had spent his life outdoors, with freedom and solitude, and now he was being asked to fill the role of both father and mother. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, making each breath feel heavier than the last. The first day he went to the house to see the children, it felt unreal. The small home that Mark had loved was quiet and empty in a way that made Jake's chest ache. Toys were scattered across the living room floor, drawings hung on the refrigerator, and the smell of leftover breakfast lingered faintly in the air. Emily ran up to him as soon as he entered, her small arms reaching out for a hug. Sam followed more cautiously, hiding behind the doorframe, peeking at Jake with wide, uncertain eyes. Jake bent down, wrapping them both in a hug that was awkward at first, but slowly became natural. He felt the strange combination of fear and love, fear of failing them, and love so strong it frightened him. Jake knew the first challenge was simple survival. The children needed food, clothing, and comfort. He remembered how Mark used to handle it all with ease, juggling work and parenthood seamlessly, always knowing what to do. Jake, on the other hand, struggled with basic routines. Breakfast, once an easy task of frying eggs for himself, suddenly involved pancakes, cereal, and coaxing Sam to take a few bites. Emily wanted to help, insisting she could pour the milk herself, but it ended up spilled on the floor. Jake cleaned up the mess, smiling despite the frustration, realizing that he was going to have to learn patience, something he had never mastered fully. School mornings became an entirely new kind of challenge. Jake had never had to wake anyone other than himself so early. Getting Emily and Sam ready involved checking backpacks, making sure they had lunches, and reminding them to brush their teeth. He stumbled over routines he had never thought about before, and some mornings ended with Jake carrying a tired, half-dressed Sam, while Emily dragged her shoes across the floor, insisting she could do it herself. Yet, despite the chaos, he felt a growing sense of purpose. The children depended on him, and he could not let them down. Evenings were the hardest. The ranch work never stopped, yet Jake now returned home to children who needed attention, comfort, and love. Dinner became an experiment in patience. Jake learned to cook more than eggs and toast. He tried making pasta and even attempted homemade bread, though the results were far from perfect. The children laughed at his mistakes, giggling when dough stuck to his hands, and Jake laughed too, discovering that these small moments were precious. Story time followed, and Jake found himself reading aloud, using silly voices and exaggerations to keep the children entertained. Emily's eyes would light up, and Sam, shy at first, would peek over her shoulder, slowly joining in the fun. As nights fell, the loneliness that had once been Jake's companion returned in a different form. He would sit by the fireplace after tucking the children into bed, reflecting on the sudden turn of events. Mark was gone, and the world felt unfair. Yet, Jake realized that in the midst of sorrow, he had a chance to create something meaningful. He had the opportunity to love and protect, to give Emily and Sam the stability they needed. Each day brought challenges, but it also brought small victories. A day when Sam spoke a full sentence without hesitation, or when Emily proudly showed a drawing she had finished. These moments became Jake's motivation, tiny sparks of hope that reminded him why he had to keep going. The neighbors and community watched Jake quietly, some offering help, others simply observing. They knew him as a capable, hard-working man, but raising children was a different kind of work. Slowly, offers of support began trickling in. A neighbor would drop off a loaf of bread, another would check in to see if he needed babysitting for a few hours. These gestures, small as they were, helped Jake feel less isolated. He realized that while he had taken on an enormous responsibility, he was not entirely alone. Through it all, Jake's love for the children grew in ways he had never imagined. He learned their quirks, the way Sam would hum softly when nervous, or how Emily would tap her foot impatiently when she was excited. He started planning little surprises, like drawing pictures for them, or letting them ride along while he fixed fences, sharing stories about their father in a way that kept his memory alive. These were small acts, but they were powerful, building a bridge between the past and the present, ensuring that the children felt loved and secure. Yet even with progress, Jake faced doubts. Could he truly be the person Emily and Sam needed? Could he provide them with a childhood full of warmth and stability, despite the hardships? Some nights, he would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the silence of the house around him, wondering if he was enough. But he never gave up. Every morning, he woke up, ready to try again, ready to face the messes, the tantrums, and the challenges, because he knew that giving up was not an option. Through the whirlwind of this new life, Jake discovered a resilience he didn't know he had. He learned that love was not just a feeling, it was action, patience, and persistence. Every spilled cereal bowl, every bedtime struggle, every morning rush became a lesson, shaping him into someone stronger, more compassionate, and deeply connected to the children who had unexpectedly become the center of his world. By the end of that first part of the journey, Jake had begun to understand that life was not about the solitude of the plains or the quiet rhythm of ranch work. It was about connection, responsibility, and love. He had stepped into a role that seemed impossible at first, and yet, with each passing day, he became more capable, more confident, and more certain that he could give Emily and Sam the life they deserved. The days were long, the work was hard, but Jake had found a new purpose, one that filled his heart in ways the wide-open plains never had. In this way, the cowboy who had once lived a life defined by solitude was learning to embrace family, responsibility, and the small daily joys that came with raising two young children. Life had changed abruptly, yet he had adapted, and though the road ahead was uncertain, he was ready to face it. One day, one challenge, and one loving moment at a time. Life on the ranch continued to be a mixture of hard work and unexpected challenges for Jake. The early days had been overwhelming, filled with sleepless nights and hurried mornings, but slowly he began to understand the rhythm of raising Emily and Sam alongside running the ranch. Each day brought a new lesson, both about the children and about himself. He discovered that fatherhood was not about knowing all the answers. It was about learning to grow alongside the children, embracing their mistakes, and celebrating their small victories. Mornings became a time of organized chaos. Jake had to get himself ready while also making sure the children were prepared for school. Emily, with her boundless curiosity, often wanted to discuss what she had learned the day before or ask questions about the world as they walked to the bus stop. Sam, on the other hand, sometimes clung to Jake's leg, reluctant to leave the safety of the home. Jake learned to balance patience with encouragement, gently coaxing Sam forward while answering Emily's endless questions. He discovered that children's minds worked in ways that were both fascinating and exhausting, and that guiding them required a mix of firmness and understanding. One of the most challenging tasks for Jake was homework. He had never been particularly academic, preferring practical skills over study. But now, every evening, he found himself sitting at the kitchen table, helping Emily with math problems and reading comprehension. Sometimes, he struggled to explain concepts in ways that made sense to her, and other times he realized he had forgotten the lessons himself. Yet, despite his uncertainty, he persisted. He used creative methods, counting with coins, drawing pictures, making lessons into stories, to keep Emily engaged. Gradually, she began to understand more, and her proud smile became one of Jake's greatest rewards. Sam, though younger, also required attention. Jake learned to engage him with gentle activities like stacking blocks, drawing, or listening to simple stories. Sam's quiet nature initially made him seem distant, but Jake realized that patience was key. By giving him time and space to open up, Sam gradually began to show his personality. He laughed at Jake's clumsy attempts at play, mimicked his actions, and even tried to help with small chores. These moments were not just bonding experiences, they were lessons in empathy, teaching Jake to notice subtle emotions and respond with care. Ranch work did not slow down, even with the added responsibility of raising children. Mornings were spent tending to the animals, repairing fences and checking fields, and Jake often had Emily and Sam nearby, observing or helping in small ways. He learned to incorporate the children into his work safely, giving them little tasks that made them feel useful while keeping them out of harm's way. Emily loved feeding the chickens and collecting eggs, while Sam enjoyed watching the horses and helping brush them. These shared activities became a bridge between Jake's past life and his new responsibilities, allowing him to maintain the ranch while nurturing his family. Social life, however, became more complicated. Jake had always enjoyed the quiet of the plains, with only occasional visits from friends or neighbors. Now he found himself interacting more with the community, seeking advice and accepting help when offered. Some days, neighbors would bring over extra meals, babysit for an hour, or offer tips on managing children. Jake had been independent his whole life, but he gradually realized that accepting support was not a weakness. It was a way to provide better care for Emily and Sam. The small acts of kindness from others reminded him that he was part of a larger network, one that could help him navigate this unexpected journey. One afternoon, after a particularly long day of chores and school pickups, Jake noticed how tired he felt. He sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and pink. Emily and Sam played nearby, laughing and chasing each other, and Jake felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. Despite the hardships, he realized that these moments, simple, everyday experiences, were what truly mattered. The ranch, the work, the routines, they were all important, but the laughter of the children was what made life meaningful. Jake also began to reflect on Mark and the life he had left behind. Sometimes he would find Emily holding a drawing Mark had made, or Sam carrying a small toy that had belonged to him. These reminders were bittersweet, filling Jake with sadness, but also motivating him to honor his brother's memory. He wanted to create a home where the children felt loved and secure, even in Mark's absence. Each bedtime story, each meal, each gentle word was his way of building that sense of stability, ensuring that Emily and Sam knew they were cherished and protected. Despite his growing confidence, Jake faced moments of doubt. There were days when nothing seemed to go right. Pancakes burned, homework ended in tears, fences broke, and exhaustion made patience run thin. On those days, he often found himself sitting quietly, questioning whether he was truly capable of raising 2 children alone. But then, something small would happen. A hug from Sam, a thank you from Emily, or a shared laugh over a spilled bowl of cereal, and Jake remembered why he persevered. He learned that parenting was not about perfection, but about consistency, love, and the willingness to keep trying, no matter the setbacks. One of the most surprising discoveries for Jake was the joy found in routines. Bedtime, once a daunting task, became a cherished ritual. He read stories aloud, using voices and gestures that brought the tales to life, and the children would respond with excitement, asking questions and sharing their own ideas. These nightly interactions became moments of connection and growth, strengthening the bond between them. Jake realized that even the smallest gestures, a bedtime hug, a shared laugh, or a word of encouragement, could make a profound difference in a child's life. As weeks turned into months, Jake's confidence grew. He began to anticipate the needs of the children, plan meals and activities, and balance ranch work with family responsibilities more effectively. Emily and Sam responded to his care, thriving under the stability and attention he provided. Their laughter, curiosity, and trust in him became a source of strength, inspiring Jake to continue learning, adapting, and growing as both a caretaker and a person. In addition to daily responsibilities, Jake also thought about the children's emotional well-being. He encouraged Emily to talk about her feelings, whether it was missing her father or dealing with school challenges. He comforted Sam when he was scared or upset, using gentle words and reassurance to help him feel safe. Jake understood that raising children involved more than meeting physical needs. It required nurturing their hearts and minds, creating an environment where they could grow confident, happy, and resilient. Through all of these experiences, Jake discovered new sides of himself. He became more patient, more empathetic, and more resourceful. He learned to handle stress with calm determination, finding creative solutions to problems both big and small. He also began to appreciate the small victories. The first time Sam spoke a full sentence without hesitation, Emily successfully completing a school project, or a day when dinner was served without any mishaps. These moments were reminders that progress, no matter how small, was meaningful. By the end of this period, Jake had not only adjusted to his new life, but had also begun to find joy in it. He realized that challenges could bring growth, and that love and patience could transform even the most difficult situations into opportunities for connection and happiness. The ranch, the work, and the routines remained, but now they were intertwined with laughter, care, and the deep bonds forming between him and the children. Jake had learned that life could change in an instant, bringing unexpected responsibility and heartbreak, but also moments of profound love and fulfillment. Each day taught him something new, about parenting, about resilience, and about the capacity of the human heart to adapt and embrace life's twists. He understood that raising Emily and Sam would be a lifelong journey, filled with challenges and rewards, but he was ready for it. With each passing day, he became more confident in his ability to guide, protect, and love them, laying the foundation for a life filled with connection, growth, and hope. Life on the ranch had settled into a steady rhythm for Jake, Emily, and Sam. The days were long, filled with chores, school routines, and the small joys that had gradually become part of their lives. Jake had learned to manage the chaos of parenthood alongside ranch work, and the children were growing more confident and comfortable under his care. Yet, despite these successes, there was still a quiet sense of isolation that lingered. Jake worked hard to make everything feel normal, but sometimes he longed for a friendly face, someone who could offer support without judgment. Little did he know that someone was about to arrive. It was a chilly autumn morning when she walked into their lives. Clara was not from the town. She had come from a neighboring county, visiting family friends and stopping by local farms along the way. She carried with her a basket of freshly baked bread, the warm smell of it filling the air as she approached Jake's porch. Her smile was gentle and inviting, and there was a calm confidence in the way she moved, as though she had come to help, not disrupt. She knocked lightly on the door, and Jake, surprised by the unexpected visitor, opened it cautiously. "Good morning," Clara said warmly, holding up the basket. "I thought you might enjoy some fresh bread." Jake blinked, unsure of what to say at first. He was used to handling everything on his own, and having someone offer help, even something as simple as bread, felt unusual. Emily, always curious, peeked around Jake's leg and immediately took notice of the visitor. "Hi!" she exclaimed. Sam followed her lead, shyly hiding behind Jake, but quietly observing the woman who had suddenly appeared in their routine. Clara's warmth was immediate. She knelt down to Sam's level, offering him a slice of bread and a kind smile. "Hello there," she said softly. "Would you like to try some?" Sam hesitated, then took a tiny bite. His eyes lit up, and he nodded. The first sign of comfort he had shown in a while with someone new. Emily, naturally outgoing, began asking Clara questions about the bread, how it was baked and why it smelled so good. Clara answered patiently, explaining each detail with care and a cheerful tone. From that first visit, it was clear that Clara had a natural gift for connecting with children. She understood their personalities and adjusted her approach to suit each of them. Emily loved asking questions and having her curiosity met with thoughtful answers, while Sam needed gentle encouragement and reassurance. Clara had the ability to meet both needs simultaneously, creating a sense of balance and calm in the household. Jake noticed this immediately, feeling a mixture of relief and curiosity. Who was this woman, and why did she make everything feel lighter in an instant? Over the next few days, Clara continued to visit. Sometimes she stayed for a short while, helping Jake with small tasks, tidying up the house or reading stories to the children. Other times, she arrived unexpectedly, bringing more baked goods or small gifts for Emily and Sam. Her presence became a gentle rhythm in their lives, a comforting constant that eased the pressures Jake felt. For the first time since Mark's passing, the home felt less lonely. The children laughed more freely, and Jake found himself looking forward to Clara's visits, even if he didn't fully understand why. Clara didn't just help with practical matters. She brought a sense of emotional support as well. She listened when Jake expressed his concerns about raising the children, offering advice without criticism. She shared simple tips for bedtime routines, cooking, and managing schoolwork, always in a way that respected Jake's methods rather than imposing her own. Through her guidance, Jake began to see that accepting help didn't make him weak, it made him stronger. It allowed him to give more attention to the children while maintaining his own well-being. The children responded immediately to Clara's presence. Emily eagerly included her in imaginative games, pretending Clara was a visiting storyteller or a helpful neighbor. Sam, initially cautious, gradually warmed up, following Clara around the house, asking for stories, or simply sitting quietly near her while she worked. Their laughter became more frequent, their confidence grew, and the bond between them and Jake strengthened even further. Clara's influence was subtle, yet powerful, helping to create a home that felt safe, happy, and nurturing. One afternoon, as Jake was repairing a fence in the back pasture, Clara stayed inside with the children, baking bread and sharing stories. The smell of warm bread drifted through the open windows, mingling with the crisp autumn air. When Jake returned, he found Emily showing Clara a drawing she had made, proudly explaining every detail. Sam was helping mix ingredients, carefully following Clara's instructions. The sight of them working together, learning and laughing, filled Jake with a quiet sense of awe. For the first time in months, he felt that everything was going to be all right. Clara's arrival also brought subtle changes to Jake himself. He found himself more patient, more willing to listen, and more open to new ways of doing things. He began trying Clara's suggestions in his daily routines, noticing how small adjustments could make life easier and more enjoyable. He learned to approach challenges with a calm mindset rather than frustration, and he began to see the joy in small victories rather than focusing solely on mistakes or difficulties. Clara's influence was not about doing things for him. It was about showing him that life could be easier, kinder, and more connected when shared. Evenings became a time of shared activity. Clara would help with homework, prepare dinner with the children, or read stories while Jake tended to chores or caught up on paperwork. The home was no longer quiet and lonely. It was filled with laughter, conversation, and the comforting hum of daily life. Emily and Sam looked forward to these moments, and Jake began to notice that the children's confidence and happiness were increasing in ways he hadn't anticipated. Clara had become a part of their routine, not just as a helper, but as a trusted friend and mentor. Jake began to realize that Clara's presence was also affecting his emotional well-being. He had been carrying the weight of responsibility alone for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to share burdens, to accept support, and to feel understood. Clara's kindness and empathy reminded him that it was okay to rely on someone else, to allow himself to experience joy and companionship. Slowly, he began to open up, sharing stories about Mark, the challenges of raising Emily and Sam, and his hopes for their future. Clara listened patiently, offering encouragement and understanding, never judging or rushing him. The children, too, seemed to sense the change. Emily began talking more openly about her feelings, asking questions about life, and expressing curiosity about the world beyond the ranch. Sam, who had been shy and hesitant, began to take small steps toward independence, exploring the yard, helping with chores, and even initiating conversations with Jake and Clara. The home had transformed from a place of quiet survival to one of warmth, growth, and connection. Over time, the visits became longer and more frequent. Clara was no longer just a helper. She had become a part of their family life. Jake found himself relying on her advice, appreciating her perspective, and enjoying her company. The children adored her, and their laughter echoed through the house and across the ranch, creating a sense of belonging that Jake had not realized was missing. He began to understand that life did not have to be faced alone, and that support, kindness, and companionship could transform even the most challenging circumstances. By the end of this period, Jake had come to a quiet realization. Clara's arrival had not only helped the children, but had also changed him. He had learned to accept help, to share responsibility, and to embrace the warmth of human connection. The home felt lighter, happier, and more complete. Emily and Sam thrived under the combined care of Jake and Clara, and Jake himself felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. Life was still challenging, but it was now filled with laughter, support, and the kind of love that made even the hardest days manageable. In this way, the cowboy who had once faced the world alone had discovered that unexpected visitors could bring light, warmth, and guidance. Clara's presence was a reminder that kindness could appear at the right moment, transforming not just a household, but the hearts within it. The bond she formed with Jake and the children marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with support, trust, and the comforting sense that life, though unpredictable, could be beautiful when shared with others. As the weeks passed, the presence of Clara in Jake's life became a comforting and steady part of the daily rhythm. She was no longer just a visitor who dropped by with warm bread. She had become an essential part of the household, someone who contributed to the smooth running of the ranch while also nurturing the hearts of Emily and Sam. The change in the home was palpable. Laughter echoed through the hallways. The children's smiles were brighter, and Jake himself felt a sense of relief he had not realized he was missing. The days were still busy and challenging, but they had become richer, filled with shared experiences and newfound joy. Clara's relationship with Emily and Sam grew stronger with every passing day. She patiently taught Emily new skills, how to bake cookies, make simple crafts, and even try small gardening tasks in the backyard. Emily loved these moments, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she learned something new. Sam, initially shy and hesitant, found comfort in Clara's gentle encouragement. He began to take small risks, like helping collect eggs from the chicken coop or watering the garden, tasks he had previously avoided. Clara had a unique way of making each child feel important and capable, encouraging them to explore their potential while always providing reassurance. Jake watched these interactions with a mixture of gratitude and admiration. He had been so focused on keeping the children fed, clothed, and safe that he had not fully realized the importance of emotional growth and confidence. Clara brought that balance into their lives, helping the children flourish in ways Jake could not have managed alone. He found himself learning from her too, observing how she communicated, how she handled setbacks, and how she encouraged positive behaviors without ever losing patience. Her presence taught him that parenting was not just about providing necessities, but about nurturing curiosity, creativity, and self-esteem. Even the simplest chores became opportunities for bonding and learning. Feeding the animals, repairing fences, or tending the garden were no longer solitary tasks for Jake. With Clara's guidance, Emily and Sam were included in age-appropriate ways, learning responsibility while enjoying themselves. The children's laughter filled the open spaces of the ranch, making the work lighter and more enjoyable. Jake realized that these shared moments, though ordinary in appearance, were creating memories and strengthening connections that would last a lifetime. Beyond daily routines, Clara introduced small traditions that brought warmth and stability to the household. Saturday mornings became a time for baking together, with the smell of bread, muffins, or cookies filling the kitchen. Emily and Sam eagerly participated, each contributing in their own way, mixing ingredients, shaping dough, or decorating finished treats. Jake would often join in, laughing at the messy hands and flour-covered faces, enjoying the simple joy of shared activity. These traditions created a sense of continuity and belonging, giving the children stability and happiness despite the loss they had experienced. Clara also encouraged outdoor adventures. She and the children would explore the surrounding fields, observe birds, and collect wildflowers. Sam, who had been hesitant to venture far from the house, gradually became more confident, holding Clara's hand as they wandered through the open land. Emily, always curious, asked endless questions about nature, and Clara answered them patiently, teaching them about plants, animals, and the changing seasons. Jake found these excursions refreshing. They allowed him to step back from constant responsibilities and simply enjoy time with the children, experiencing the joy of discovery alongside them. During these times, Jake and Clara began to build a quiet understanding and mutual respect. He appreciated her patience, wisdom, and empathy, while she admired his dedication, strength, and willingness to adapt to a life he had not anticipated. They began to share small moments, conversations over morning coffee, walking together to check on the animals, or quietly observing the children at play. These interactions, though subtle, created a growing bond built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Neither of them rushed, yet the connection deepened naturally, like water gradually carving a path through stone. The children, sensing the harmony between Jake and Clara, began to thrive emotionally. Emily's confidence soared, and she started expressing herself more openly, sharing her thoughts and ideas without hesitation. Sam's shyness diminished, replaced by curiosity and a willingness to engage with both Jake and Clara. The home became a space where the children felt safe to explore, make mistakes, and learn. Jake noticed their growth with pride, realizing that he had created a nurturing environment that Mark would have been proud of, strengthened further by Clara's presence. There were, of course, challenges. Not every day was perfect, and Jake sometimes struggled to balance ranch work, household responsibilities, and parenting. But with Clara's support, these challenges became manageable. When a fence needed urgent repair, she organized the children with small tasks, keeping them safe while contributing to the work. When school projects demanded extra attention, she stepped in to help Emily focus, guiding her gently while Jake handled other chores. Her presence never overshadowed him. Instead, it enhanced the family dynamic, creating a sense of teamwork and shared purpose. One evening, after a particularly long day, Jake sat on the porch with Clara, watching Emily and Sam play with a small wooden wagon in the yard. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the fields, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of nature. Jake felt a sense of peace he had not experienced in months. "I don't know what we would have done without you," he admitted quietly. Clara smiled, her eyes reflecting the same warmth and understanding she had shown the children countless times. "We're all learning together," she said softly. "This family, you, Emily, Sam, we're all growing stronger every day." The sense of unity continued to deepen as they faced small milestones together. Emily learned to ride a horse under Jake's supervision, with Clara cheering her on from the sidelines. Sam mastered tying his shoes and helping with simple chores around the house. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, was celebrated with laughter and encouragement. Jake realized that these moments were not just about the children's growth, they were also about his own journey. He had learned patience, empathy, and resilience, discovering qualities within himself that he had never fully recognized before. As the seasons changed, so did the rhythms of the household. Clara adapted seamlessly, helping the children prepare for school, weather changes, and holidays. Together, they created a home filled with warmth, laughter, and support. Jake noticed how the children's bond with Clara had grown so natural that it seemed as though she had always been part of their lives. Her presence had transformed the household from one of survival into one of thriving, where emotional growth, joy, and connection flourished alongside the daily responsibilities of ranch life. Through all of this, Jake began to understand the true meaning of family. It was not just about blood or shared history, it was about love, trust, and the willingness to be present for each other. Clara's presence had shown him that family could be chosen, nurtured, and strengthened through care and attention. The bond they were forming was not based on convenience, but on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the genuine desire to support one another. By the end of this period, Jake felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had entered this chapter of life burdened with responsibility and uncertainty, yet he had discovered joy, companionship, and love in ways he had never imagined. Clara had become more than a helper. She was a partner in the truest sense, someone who shared in the triumphs, challenges, and everyday moments of their lives. Emily and Sam thrived in this environment, and Jake had learned that strength did not mean facing the world alone. It meant accepting help, building trust, and opening one's heart. Life was still busy and demanding, but it was now filled with laughter, warmth, and shared experiences. The ranch continued to thrive, the children grew more confident each day, and Jake felt a sense of fulfillment that had once seemed impossible. Together they had created a household that balanced work, love, and growth, a home where challenges were met with patience, triumphs were celebrated, and life's unpredictability was met with resilience and hope. In this way, the cowboy who had once believed he had to face life alone had discovered that love, support, and shared responsibility could transform even the most challenging circumstances. Clara's presence had brought not only help, but also joy, stability, and a sense of belonging. Through their combined efforts, Jake, Emily, Sam, and Clara were building more than a home. They were building a family, grounded in trust, respect, and the quiet, enduring power of care. Life on the ranch had settled into a comfortable, happy rhythm for Jake, Emily, Sam, and Clara. What had once been a house filled with quiet and cautious steps was now alive with laughter, chatter, and the warm smells of home-cooked meals. Jake had grown confident in his role as a caretaker and provider, and Clara's presence had not only lightened his load, but enriched the lives of the children in ways he had never imagined. Together, they had built a home filled with love, trust, and support. A home where Emily and Sam could thrive. The bond between Clara and the children had grown inseparable. Emily would often drag Clara into creative projects, demanding help with painting, baking, or building small crafts from wood. Sam, who had once been shy and hesitant, now followed Clara's lead with excitement, eager to participate in any activity. Clara's patience, encouragement, and gentle guidance had nurtured the children's confidence, helping them discover abilities and interests they had never explored before. Jake watched these interactions with quiet pride, realizing that the children's happiness was a reflection of the care and love surrounding them. One crisp morning, as Jake worked in the barn, repairing a broken stall door, he noticed Clara and the children walking through the fields, a small picnic basket in hand. Emily's laughter carried across the open land, and Sam's delighted shrieks followed. Clara waved to Jake, her smile radiant in the morning sun. He paused for a moment, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and wonder at how much their lives had changed in such a short time. What had started as a life filled with uncertainty and worry had transformed into one rich with joy, connection, and hope. The children began to share their feelings more openly, and Jake could see how much they had grown. Emily was now confidently expressing her ideas and opinions, while Sam had shed much of his initial shyness, engaging with both Jake and Clara with curiosity and enthusiasm. Clara had a way of encouraging each child individually, recognizing their strengths and gently guiding them through challenges. This had made a profound difference, not only in their behavior, but in their emotional resilience. Jake realized that they were no longer just surviving after Mark's passing. They were thriving. Even the daily chores and responsibilities of ranch life had taken on a new meaning. Feeding the animals, tending the fields, and maintaining the property were no longer just tasks. They had become opportunities for teaching, learning, and bonding. Emily loved helping gather eggs or feeding the chickens, and Sam enjoyed brushing the horses with Clara, guiding him patiently. Jake found joy in these shared activities, noticing how the children's confidence and skills grew with each small accomplishment. Work and family life were no longer separate. They blended seamlessly, creating a sense of unity and purpose. Clara's presence also brought unexpected comfort and companionship to Jake. He had been used to solitude, relying on his own strength and endurance, but he now realized the importance of sharing life with someone who understood, supported, and encouraged him. They began spending quiet moments together, talking about plans for the ranch, the children's growth, or simply sharing laughter over small mishaps in the kitchen. Their connection grew naturally, built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding, never rushed or forced, but steady and comforting. One afternoon, after finishing the day's chores, Jake sat with Clara on the porch while the children played nearby. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the ranch was quiet except for the distant calls of birds returning to their nests. "You've changed everything here," Jake said softly, his voice full of gratitude. "I don't know how we would have managed without you." Clara smiled, a gentle warmth in her eyes. "We're all in this together," she replied. "You've done an amazing job, Jake. The children are lucky to have you." In that moment, Jake realized that Clara was not just a helper or a friend. She had become family, a partner in the truest sense. The children's growth continued to impress Jake. Emily's curiosity had expanded into a love for learning, and she eagerly shared new discoveries with both Jake and Clara. Sam, once hesitant to speak in unfamiliar situations, now approached tasks and challenges with confidence, trusting in his abilities and the support of those around him. The home was filled with encouragement, laughter, and warmth, creating a safe environment where mistakes were accepted as part of learning and accomplishments were celebrated wholeheartedly. Jake marveled at the transformation, recognizing that the love and guidance of both Clara and himself had helped shape the children into resilient, joyful individuals. Holidays and special occasions brought additional joy. Clara and Jake worked together to make celebrations memorable, involving Emily and Sam in decorating, cooking, and planning. Birthdays were filled with laughter, shared stories, and simple homemade treats, while family traditions were introduced to create lasting memories. These moments strengthened the bond between them, highlighting the importance of love, family, and togetherness. Jake realized that despite the challenges and grief they had faced, they were building a life filled with happiness, connection, and shared experiences. There were still challenges, of course. Life on the ranch was demanding, and raising children required constant attention and energy. But Jake and Clara had learned to face difficulties as a team, supporting one another through setbacks and celebrating successes together. The children had become more independent and responsible, taking on small tasks with pride and confidence, and Jake had grown more patient, understanding, and flexible in his approach to both parenting and ranch management. Together they were creating a balanced life where work, love, and growth coexisted harmoniously. One quiet evening after the children had gone to bed, Jake reflected on the journey they had taken. He remembered the first days after Mark's passing, the fear, the uncertainty, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility. He thought about the long nights of sleepless worry, the messy breakfasts, and the struggles to balance work and family. Yet now, the home was filled with laughter, warmth, and shared responsibility. Emily and Sam were thriving, Clara had become an inseparable part of their lives, and Jake felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. As the seasons continued to change, so did the depth of their connection. Clara's presence became a comforting constant, and Jake realized that life's unexpected twists had brought a gift beyond anything he could have imagined. He had discovered the strength to care for the children, the courage to accept help, and the joy of sharing life with someone who understood and supported him. Emily and Sam had grown into confident, happy children, and the bond between them, Jake and Clara, had become unbreakable. The ranch, once a place of solitary labor, had transformed into a home filled with love and laughter. The children played freely in the open fields, helped with chores, and participated in family traditions, all under the watchful and caring eyes of Jake and Clara. Life was no longer about simply surviving. It was about thriving, learning, and creating memories that would last a lifetime. The family had found balance, harmony, and a deep sense of belonging. Jake realized that true happiness came not from solitude or endless hard work alone, but from connection, love, and shared experiences. He had learned that accepting help was not a sign of weakness, but a way to build strength and resilience. Clara's arrival had brought more than assistance. It had brought warmth, companionship, and the sense of family that Jake and the children had needed all along. Together, they had created a life that honored the past while embracing the future with hope, joy, and love. The days continued with laughter, work, and shared moments of joy. Emily and Sam flourished under the guidance and love of both Jake and Clara, learning important lessons about responsibility, kindness, and resilience. Jake found fulfillment not only in caring for the children and managing the ranch, but in building a family where love and support were at the center. Clara had become a source of comfort, wisdom, and joy, creating a home where everyone felt valued, secure, and cherished. By the end of this chapter, Jake understood that life's challenges could lead to unexpected blessings. He had been faced with loss, responsibility, and uncertainty, yet through perseverance, love, and the support of Clara, they had built a home filled with happiness and hope. The journey had been difficult, but the rewards were immeasurable. The cowboy who had once faced life alone had found companionship, family, and a sense of purpose that made every challenge worthwhile. Emily and Sam, once uncertain and fragile after losing their father, had grown into confident, happy children, nurtured by the love of Jake and Clara. The home was no longer quiet and filled with anxiety. It was alive with laughter, learning, and shared moments that strengthened bonds and created lasting memories. The ranch, the work, and the daily routines had become opportunities for growth, connection, and joy. Together, they had built a family that was resilient, loving, and full of hope for the future. And so, the cowboy, the children, and the woman who had walked into their lives carrying warm bread and a smile had created something enduring and beautiful. Life on the ranch was still full of work and responsibility, but it was now enriched with love, laughter, and shared purpose. They had learned that family could be chosen, nurtured, and strengthened through care, understanding, and patience. They had found joy in the everyday moments and hope in the face of challenges. And in that home, filled with warmth and connection, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together as a family.